Welcome to this month's edition of the Impact Disciple Making Leaders podcast. I'm Mike Keaton, your host, and I am joined again here with the lead pastor of Crossroads Church, Ken Adams, founder of Impact Ministries, and we're talking disciple making. We're so glad that you've tuned in today, and we want to just share with you some things that we're learning about and talking about. Last month, Ken, we started a new series on this whole idea of multiplication discipleship. Kind of a word a lot of people hear and maybe have had heard, in time, but not really sure, okay, how to go about that, what is that, and all those kind of things. So that's kind of what we want to cover. So last time we talked about what is multiplication discipleship.
Yeah.
Made a very clear distinction between addition and multiplication. And so let's take it a step further this time and talk about the why.
Yeah, that's a great way of setting it up, Mike. And I think sometimes we need to know why something is important before we really get committed to doing it.
That's pretty much every time, though, isn't it? Everything has to have a why.
It's everything, right? I mean, you think about it. I'm not going to work out unless I know why it's important. I'm not going to read my Bible unless I know why it's important. I'm not going to tithe unless I know why it's important. Because you got to really know the why. And so, if you're just now catching this podcast, you want to go back and check out last month's podcast because you want to know what multiplication is. You want to know what multiplication means, but then we want to unpack why it is so important that the church becomes a movement of multiplying disciples, and it was so important why each believer needs to have a life of multiplying disciples. That needs to be the legacy of our lives.
Right.
So
So the why is so important because it deals with really those inner motivations.
Exactly.
What motivates us to fulfill this multiplication mission. So let's talk about that a little bit and just kind of unpack it in terms of, all right, so why then?
Yeah.
Why multiply?
Yeah, and so I like to really kind of break this down into three things, right?
Okay.
I think there's three real good reasons why you want to be really reproducing the life of Christ in other people. The first one is because multiplication versus addition, multiplication is the fastest way to reach the nations. So what we know is that Jesus said in the Great Commission, he said, go make disciples of all nations. Now, either that can be done or he told us to do something that was impossible.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. And so when we look at the current state of affairs, we're not making very much progress because the population growth of the planet is growing exponentially.
Yes, it is.
And the church is not even coming close to growing exponentially. If you go back, this is interesting, you go back to the book of Acts, and in Acts chapter 1, when Jesus is in the upper room with his disciples, there are 120. And then if you go to the last Acts chapter 21, go to the end of Acts, it says literally that the city of Jerusalem was filled with thousands upon thousands of Jews that believed. So the church literally went from 120 to thousands upon thousands. Some New Testament teachers say that the church was about 100 to 150,000 strong in a city that was about 200 to 250,000 people.
Yeah, that's pretty significant.
So that's 50% of the population that had been reached for Christ. And so it was possible to do what Jesus had told us. We still have the same plan. We still have the same power that they had 2,000 years ago. I'm just not sure that we're doing it. So it literally is one of, if we could get back to a movement of multiplication, it literally is one of the fastest ways to reach the world. And it starts slow, but it gains traction.
Right. We got to stay after it, though.
You have
to stay after it. And it's so, when you think about the statistic that says that, like 85% of churches either plateaued or declining.
Yeah.
And then the fact that the population growth is outgrowing the church, it's even more reason why we need it so that we can keep up. And then the fastest idea is just like getting after it. So,
Yeah.
all right. So fastest
Yeah,
way to do
so
it. Then what else?
multiplication, it is the fastest way to reach the nations. And then secondly, is that multiplication is really the smartest way. It's really the smartest way to reach the nations. You know, you can work, you can do something that is smarter, or you can do something that is harder. You know, and so I think sometimes what we do is that we're trying to reach the nations the hardest way possible because we're trying to do it by addition, when we really ought to be doing it by multiplication. You know, think of it like this, Mike. So if you were going to send your child to school, and you had a choice to either put them in a classroom of a ratio of 1 to 100 or 1 to 10, I think I know which one you'd choose.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you'd want one teacher to 10 students versus one teacher to 100 students. And so what happens is that in movements of addition, they just get larger and larger and larger. But movements of multiplying disciples that keep reproducing more and more groups of disciples, they get smaller and smaller. This was a secret to the church in Acts chapter 2, is that it tells us that they would meet in large groups in the temple court, but they would also meet in houses, house to house.
Right.
And I believe that is based on the model of how Jesus made disciples with the apostles. Is that Jesus took a handful of 12 guys, and he turned their lives around in such a way that they went out and changed the world.
Wow.
They turned the world upside down because of the power of a small teacher-pupil ratio. And so multiplying disciples, it is by far the fastest way we're going to reach the planet. It is also the smartest way that we're going to be able to reach the nations.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's maybe not so intuitive at first, but the idea of you going smaller in order to go larger, being the smartest way, I think that's really good.
You know, think about it like this, Mike. So let's just use Jesus as the example. So when you look at the life of Christ, his influence while he was here on the planet would not necessarily be that great in terms of even compared to some of the churches that we have in our country today or in the world today. Jesus' movement was maybe, well, he had 120 in the upper room. He had a few thousand followers possibly at that point in time. But today, 2,000 years later, oh my gosh, man, we're talking about billions.
Yes.
We're talking about billions of people that have
Continents.
become disciples of Jesus Christ. And in a world filled with, 8 billion people? I mean, I think we need to get back to a movement
Absolutely.
of multiplying disciples. And
So fastest, smartest.
yeah, and then
you said 3.
Yeah, the third thing is it is the easiest way. It's really the easiest way. So again, we want to work smarter, not harder.
Right.
We want to work easier, not more difficult. And so I like to think of it like this. If you were thinking about your money, your finances, and you say, well, how would you like to invest your money? Would you like to invest it in simple interest or compound interest? That's a hands down.
Yeah.
You know you're going to go
No-brainer.
compound interest,
Absolutely.
right? And in fact, you know, somebody said it like this: if you give me a penny a day and double it every day for 30 days, then you know, I'll have a few $100,000 or whatever. I'm sorry, if you did that, you'd have $10 million versus if you just gave me a lump sum of $100,000 or so. So, so yeah, if you take that penny a day, double it every day for 30 days, it grows exponentially. It compounds over time. So we need to be compounding the kingdom. We need to be investing in disciples that turn around and invest in more disciples. So, you know, we said last time, a movement of addition is making disciples.
Right.
But a movement of multiplication is when disciples are making disciples.
That's exactly right. That's so good. So we have the fastest, the smartest, and the easiest. Those seem like such great logical, things to think about. And so, well, why wouldn't we multiply? So that's a great question. Well, why then, if it's the fastest, easiest, and smartest, what's the obstacle? What gets in the way?
Yeah. So, you know, what it really comes down to is a matter of obedience. It really does. And so it is possible that sometimes it is a lack of knowledge. It is possible that if you've never heard anybody talking about multiplication, if you've never seen an example of multiplication, it is possible to kind of miss that. But if you really look at the life of Christ and you study Christ's life and see how he made disciples that made disciples, how he reached the world, then we really don't have a good excuse, do we?
No, we don't.
It really comes down to obedience. And so,
Wow.
I've said this a number of times, Mike, that really and truly, I wish I had started living by the priority of multiplication years ago when I was much younger. But you know what? Here's what I will tell you is that from now to the end of my days, I'm going to, whether I'm a pastor or not a pastor or any of that, what I am going to do is that I'm going to spend every year of my life recruiting a new handful of people that I can help disciple and that I can help lead from what I'd call an untrained seeker to a fully trained disciple. I'm just going to do that till they put me in the grave. And if I can do that, and they, even just a few of them, really catch the vision of reproducing their life, then long after I'm dead and gone, and long after my influence will be gone in a generation anyway. And so nobody will even know my name or care. But if I live my life wisely enough, they'll continue to remember the name of Jesus Christ long after you and I are dead and gone.
Wow.
There's no better way. In fact, the question is, why wouldn't we want to live lives of multiplying disciples?
Ken, I appreciate your heart and your passion, and as long as I've known you, that has been your heartbeat. And so that is, and that's why we're even doing what we're doing right now. I was kind of thinking, though, when we were talking just then, that so we had fastest, smartest, easiest. It's all, and then the obedience issue. It actually is kind of okay. Well, there's almost a fourth one. The simplest. So if it's a simple solution, just obey, right?
Yeah.
Jesus said, "Follow me."
That's right.
Why do you follow me? And then, or why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? So it's like simple obedience. However, sometimes simple obedience is just not always easy obedience. We just need to just do it. So
that's right.
I appreciate that, Ken.
Yeah.
You got some things you want to share with our viewers today?
Yeah. So one of the things that we try to do at Impact Ministries is we just try to resource people. So we do training and we provide curriculum and coaching and consulting and those kind of things. But one of the things that one of the very first things that I wrote with Impact Ministries was a little booklet called "Becoming a Plan A Christian." And it's based on a little illustration that I heard in seminary about how to live your life not as Plan B, but as Plan A to reach the nation. So I won't tell you all about it, let you read it, but it's a free resource. It's a free download. And so all you got to do is go to impactdisciples.com, go to the resource section, look for free downloads. You can download a copy of it, share it with people in your church, use it as much as you want to. It'll be a great little resource. And then also, we've written a booklet called The Power of Multiplication that you can go to the website. You can pick up a copy of this, order as many as you want to. It's a great study to do together as a team. So we got some resources and other things too as well. So we're here to help churches make disciples.
That's it. So because of that, we thank you for joining us today, and we hope that this has been helpful for you, discovering your why to multiply. And, just so that you don't lose your way. Somebody once said that if you don't know your why, you'll lose your way. We don't want you to lose your way. We don't want to lose our way. So we just want to join together and make a difference in accomplishing the mission Jesus gave us to do. So thanks again for tuning in today. If there's anything we can do to help you and apply this in your context or life, then just, reach out to impactdisciples.com. Touch base with us. We'd love to follow up with you. Thanks again for tuning in today. We'll see you next time.